she said, "Do you believe me?" And I said, "Yes, I believe you." And that was the change.
The Cosby Show was more than just a TV show. It was a cultural phenomenon that changed the face of television forever. Airing from 1984 to 1992, it brought the Huxtable family into millions of homes every Thursday night, offering a warm, funny, and groundbreaking portrayal of an upper-middle-class African-American family. The show didn't just entertain, it broke barriers, showing a black family that was successful, relatable, and aspirational, challenging stereotypes and reshaping how families were depicted on screen. Its success made stars out of its cast, from the lovable kids to the wise and witty parents, Cliff and Clair Huxtable. But beneath the cozy sweaters, the Jell-O pudding pops, and the heartfelt life lessons, the set of The Cosby Show wasn't always the happy place it appeared to be. Over its 8 seasons, several actors left the show or saw their roles shrink dramatically, leaving fans puzzled and curious for years. The official reasons given at the time were often vague. Phrases like creative differences or storyline changes were thrown around, but the truth was far more complex. Behind the scenes, there were personal conflicts, clashing ambitions, and the towering influence of the show's star and creator, Bill Cosby, whose vision shaped every aspect of the show. To understand why actors left, we need to peel back the curtain and explore the messy, human stories of artistic dreams, power struggles, and personal growth that played out just out of the camera's view. The most famous and dramatic departure was that of Lisa Bonet, who played Denise Huxtable, the free-spirited, fashion-forward second daughter. Denise was a standout character from the start. With her eclectic style, think bold patterns, oversized hats, and a bohemian vibe, she was the cool, slightly rebellious Huxtable who marched to her own beat. Her wardrobe, inspired by Lisa Bonet's own T.A. set trends and made her a style icon for a generation of young viewers. On screen, Denise was the artistic soul of the family, more interested in designing clothes or chasing creative passions than following a straight path to college or a traditional career. Fans adored her because she felt real, a teenager figuring herself out, making mistakes, but always grounded by the love of her family. Off-screen, Lisa Bonet was just as independent, and that independence put her on a collision course with Bill Cosby, who had a very specific idea of what The Cosby Show should be. Cosby didn't just play the dad on TV, he was the driving force behind the show's creation and tone. He wanted the Huxtables to be a perfect, wholesome family, a shining example of success and respectability that could inspire audiences, especially African-American viewers. The show was his vision, and he ran the set like a patriarch, not just to the characters, but to the actors themselves. He gave advice on their careers, commented on their personal lives, and expected them to uphold the Huxtable image both on and off the screen. For young actors like Lisa Bonet, who joined the show as a teenager, this dynamic worked at first. Cosby was a mentor, a guide, and a towering figure in entertainment, and being part of his show was a dream come true. But as Bonet grew into her 20s, she started to feel confined by the role of Denise and the expectations placed on her by Cosby. She was an artist with her own dreams, and those dreams didn't always fit into the neat, family-friendly box of The Cosby Show. The first big clash came in 1987, when Bonet was 19 and landed a role in the movie Angel Heart, a dark, psychological thriller directed by Alan Parker. This wasn't just a small step outside the sitcom world, it was a leap into a completely different universe. In Angel Heart, Bonet played Epiphany Proudfoot, a young voodoo priestess in Louisiana, caught up in a gritty, unsettling story with Mickey Rourke's private detective, Harry Angel. The role was intense, complex, and demanded a level of emotional depth that The Cosby Show never required. It was the kind of part that could prove Bonet was more than just a sitcom star. She could hold her own in a serious, dramatic film. But the movie was controversial, with violent scenes and a graphic sex scene between Bonet and Rourke that originally earned the film an X rating from the Motion Picture Association of America. Even after edits to secure an R rating, the scene was steamy and provocative, making headlines and raising eyebrows. For Bill Cosby, this was a problem. He saw Denise as America's sweetheart, a quirky but good-hearted teen, And now she was in a dark, sexually explicit film that clashed with the wholesome image he'd built for the show. He was reportedly furious, feeling that Bonet's choice could damage the show's reputation and confuse its family-oriented audience. Bonet, however, stood by her decision. She saw Angel Heart as a chance to grow as an actress, to show the world she could do more than play the lovable Denise. In interviews at the time, she spoke passionately about wanting to explore different sides of her craft, to take risks and challenge herself. This wasn't just a job for her. It was about proving who she was as an artist. But to Cosby, it felt like a betrayal. He wasn't just worried about the show. He took her choice personally, as if she was rejecting the values he was trying to promote. This class, each wasn't just about one movie, it was about two different visions. Cosby saw The Cosby Show as a collective brand, with every actor playing their part to maintain its image. Bonet saw herself as an individual, with the right to make her own choices, even if they didn't align with Cosby's plans. Instead of firing her outright, the producers came up with a creative solution, a spin-off show called A Different World. The idea was brilliant on paper. It would follow Denise as she left home to attend Hillman College, a fictional, historically black college, giving her a new setting to shine as the lead while staying in the Cosby universe. Fans could still see their favorite character, and Bonet would get her own show, away from the main Cosby Show set where tensions were brewing. A Different World aired right after The Cosby Show, following Denise as a college freshman, navigating new friendships with roommates like Maggie and Jaleesa, and sparking a romance with the charming, nerdy Dwayne Wayne, played by Kadeem Hardison. At first, the show felt like an extension of The Cosby Show's warm, lighthearted vibe, just set in a dorm instead of a Brooklyn brownstone. But some critics and viewers felt it didn't capture the real experience of a black college, coming off as a bit too polished and unrealistic. Things changed when Debbie Allen, a celebrated director, producer, and choreographer, joined the show for its second season. Allen had a bold vision to make A Different World more authentic, tackling serious issues like racism, date rape, and political activism. Her changes turned the show into a cultural touchstone, beloved for its honesty and depth. But Lisa Bonet wouldn't be part of that success. During the first season, her personal life took a major turn. In 1987, she eloped with musician Lenny Kravitz in Las Vegas, and soon after, she became pregnant with their daughter, Zoe. When she shared the news with the producers and Cosby, they faced a choice: write the pregnancy into the show or not. The idea of Denise as an unmarried, pregnant college student was floated, but Cosby rejected it outright. To him, it didn't fit the idealized world of the Huxtables or Hillman College. He believed Denise wasn't mature enough to be a mother in the story, and showing a single pregnancy could send the wrong message to the show's young audience. So, at the end of the first season, Denise was written out, dropping out of Hillman and leaving the show entirely. The official reason was creative differences. But it was clear the real issue was that Bonet's life choices didn't match Cosby's vision for the show. With Bonet gone, Debbie Allen retooled A Different World to focus on characters like Dwayne Wayne and Whitley Gilbert, played by Jasmine Guy, and the show thrived for 5 more seasons, becoming a classic in its own right. Meanwhile, Lisa Bonet went from starring in 2 hit shows to being off TV in just a few months. But her story with The Cosby Show wasn't over yet. In a surprising twist, she returned in 1989 for the 6th season. To explain her absence, the writers crafted an elaborate storyline. Denise had gone to Africa, married a Navy lieutenant named Martin Kendall, played by Joseph C. Phillips, and became a stepmother to his young daughter Olivia, played by Raven Simonet. This allowed her to return as a married woman, sidestepping the issue of an unwed pregnancy that Cosby had found so objectionable. The return was a hit with fans, and Olivia's adorable presence brought new energy to the show, boosting ratings. For a moment, it seemed like the problems had been resolved, and Bonet was back in the Huxtable family. But the peace didn't last. Reports from the set, both at the time and years later, described a tense atmosphere. Bonet was said to be frequently late, and the old disagreements about her character and the show's direction resurfaced. The creative differences that had been mentioned before hadn't gone away. They'd just been temporarily covered up. By 1991, during the 7th season, the decision was made to let her go for good. Once again, the official reason was creative differences. But this time, there was no spin-off or comeback. Denise was written out, said to have moved to Asia with her husband, and she was barely mentioned in the final season. She didn't even appear in the series finale, a stark contrast to her central role in the show's early years. Lisa Bonet's departure wasn't just one moment. It was a long, complicated process driven by her desire to grow as an artist and person, clashing with Cosby's rigid vision for the show. She refused to stay in the role of Denise forever, and that choice led to her exit from the world that made her a star. Her story is a powerful example of what happens when an artist's personal growth conflicts with the expectations of a tightly controlled show, especially one led by someone as dominant as Bill Cosby. While Lisa Bonet's exit is the most well-known, other actors faced their own struggles on The Cosby Show. Joseph C. Phillips, who played Martin Kendall, joined in the 6th season to support Denise's return storyline. Martin was a stable, reliable Navy officer, a grounding force for the often dreamy Denise, and his young daughter Olivia added a fresh dynamic to the Huxtable household. On screen, it worked well, bringing back the energy of having a young child in the house, like Rudy in the early seasons. But off-screen, Phillips has said his experience was far from pleasant. In a detailed blog post years later, he described a tense and difficult set, largely because of his interactions with Lisa Bonet and Bill Cosby. He said Bonet was often late, unprepared, and seemed to resent being on the show. She would mumble her lines or act disinterested during tapings, which made it hard for Phillips to create the on-screen chemistry needed for their characters' loving marriage. He felt her behavior was disrespectful to the cast and crew who were working hard to make the show a success. His relationship with Bill Cosby was even more challenging. Phillips had admired Cosby as a trailblazer for black performers, and he was thrilled to work with him at first. But that excitement faded quickly. He described Cosby as having a quick temper and a need to control everything. One incident stood out. During a taping, Cosby harshly criticized Phillips in front of the entire cast, crew, and live studio audience over a small mistake with a line. Phillips felt humiliated, like he was being publicly scolded to show who was in charge. After that, he was constantly on edge, worried about doing something to set Cosby off again. He felt caught between a co-star he found unprofessional and a boss he saw as intimidating. Phillips also felt like his character Martin wasn't valued. His role was tied to Denise's storyline, and when she was written out in 1991, his purpose on the show became unclear. In the final season, Martin appeared in only a few episodes, with the excuse that he was away on Navy duty. Olivia, played by the charismatic Raven Simone, stayed as a main character, essentially raised by Cliff and Clair. Phillips wasn't fired like Bonet, but his role was so reduced that he felt pushed out. When the show ended, he was relieved to leave what had become a stressful job. His story shows that the tension on set wasn't just about Bonet. It was part of a larger environment where Cosby's control made it hard for some actors to thrive. Another actor with a quieter but still telling story is Sabrina Labia, who played Sandra, the eldest Huxtable daughter. Sandra didn't appear in the pilot, but was introduced as the smart, mature daughter away at Princeton University. When she showed up, she was the voice of reason, the older sister who had already figured out many of the challenges her younger siblings were facing. Interestingly, the role of Sandra was almost played by Whitney Houston, who was considered but chose to focus on her music career, a choice that turned out to be a good one. Bill Cosby was hesitant to cast Labiouf because she was only 10 years younger than Felicia Rashad, who played her mother, Clair. The casting director pushed for Labiouf, believing her talent and poise made her perfect for the sophisticated Sandra. Over the show's 8 seasons, Sandra's presence was inconsistent. She was featured heavily in some episodes, especially those about her relationship and eventual marriage to Elvin Thibodeau, played by Jeffrey Owens, but then she might disappear for several episodes. This made sense in the story. Sandra was older, had graduated college, gone to law school, married, and had twins, so she wasn't at home as much as the younger kids. The Cosby Show was at its core about parenting, and Bill Cosby thrived in scenes where he could play the wise, funny dad. As Sandra became a wife and mother, her stories shifted to adult issues like marriage and running a household, which weren't the show's main focus. When Olivia joined, the show returned to parenting a young child, which was more in line with Cosby's strengths. Sandra's character might have simply become less interesting to the show's narrative, which was driven by Cosby's vision. Unlike Phillips, LaBeouf never spoke publicly about conflicts on set, and she's always seemed grateful for her time on the show, participating in reunions and speaking fondly of the experience. After The Cosby Show ended, she largely stepped away from TV and built a successful career in theater, especially with the Shakespeare Theater Company in Washington, D.C. This suggests her true passion was in more serious, dramatic work, not the broad humor of sitcoms. Her story isn't one of drama or conflict, but of quietly drifting away from the show's spotlight as its focus shifted. She didn't leave, but the show moved away from her. Then there's Jeffrey Owens, who played Elvin, Sandra's husband. Elvin joined in the second season as a recurring character, starting as a traditional, sometimes chauvinistic foil to the progressive Huxtables, especially Clair. Over time, he softened, becoming a loving husband and father, though still prone to funny, clueless moments. Owens was a talented comedic actor who brought Elvin to life perfectly. He stayed until the series finale, so his story isn't about leaving the show, but about what happened after. In 2018, a photo of Owens working at a Trader Joe's in New Jersey went viral, and some media outlets framed it as a sad story of a former star struggling. But the public's response was overwhelmingly supportive, with fans and fellow actors praising his dignity and hard work. Owens handled it with grace, explaining that the job gave him flexibility to keep pursuing acting while supporting his family. The attention led to new opportunities, including a role on a Tyler Perry series, but his story highlights the challenges of life after a huge show like The Cosby Show. For 8 years, the cast enjoyed fame and steady work, but when the show ended, it was hard to escape the shadow of their iconic roles. For Owens, playing Elvin was a blessing, but it also made it tougher to be seen as anything else in the industry. What ties all these stories together, Lisa Bonet's bold rebellion, Joseph C. Phillips's disillusionment, Sabrina LeBeau's quiet fade, and Jeffrey Owens's post-show journey, is the massive influence of Bill Cosby. He was the heart of The Cosby Show, shaping its stories, tone, and environment. His vision of a perfect, uplifting family drove every decision, and he expected the actors to reflect that image in their real lives. When Lisa Bonet made choices like starring in Angel Heart or getting pregnant outside marriage, Cosby saw it as a personal affront, not just a professional issue. When Joseph C. Phillips made a small mistake, Cosby's harsh reaction was about maintaining control. Actors who didn't align with his vision, like Bonet, were pushed out. Others, like LaBeouf, drifted to the edges as the show focused on what Cosby cared about most. The reasons these actors left or faded aren't simple. They're about real human struggles, from chasing artistic dreams to navigating a tough work environment to finding a new path after fame. The happy, perfect Huxtable home we saw on TV was a carefully crafted illusion, hiding a world of tension, control, and personal growth. Those behind-the-scenes stories are just as much a part of The Cosby Show's legacy as the laughter and lessons that made it a beloved classic.